Days 70 to 71, St. George, Utah. So I said goodbye to Vegas in the morning, but before I left, I went to see the Real Bodies exhibit in the Bally's Hotel. I wanted to see it forever. At some point, it even came to Israel, but I never made it. And for someone who is interested in medicine and is an EMT, it was just a treasure trove of things. I'm so happy I went to see it, but because it's real bodies and body parts and whatever, I'm not posting any pictures in case people are too sensitive. But if you're there, it's an absolute must. So Utah is out of this world. It's like there was this multicolored, multi-layered pie, and then somebody just punched through the crust and scooped a whole bunch of pieces out and left everything else intact. It has snow-capped mountains, and it has valleys and canyons and cliffs and deserts and lakes and forests, and a lot of times you can just see all of it in one glance. It is absolutely mind-boggling and indescribable, and I'm very sorry that I didn't get to spend more time there, but it is a place that you can go back to and be there for months and not see everything that there was to see. So I drove from Vegas into the Utah mountains, into the little town of St. George. And when I got there, it started raining. And when I checked the weather, I realized it's going to be raining for the next day. And that messed up my plans because I stayed in LA more than I was planning to. And that meant that I will have to give up on the hot air balloon festival in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that John, the math PhD that I met in Olympic National Park, told me about. And the reason why I had to give up on the balloons is because I was absolutely not willing to give up on any one of the Utah's Mighty Five, the 5 national parks there. And also, I absolutely had to be in Texas on the morning of October 13th. So between the rain and the deadlines, I just decided that I'm going to spend the next day in St. George and rest and do whatever you can do in St. George and hit the Utah's Mighty Five after that. So of course, when you say Utah, you think about Mormons. Well, now you're supposed to call them the Church of Latter-day Saints. And I have a very big beef with cults and religions, and to me, the two are pretty much the same. And it especially cracks me up when these religions that are not even 100 or 200 years old and that were born during the time of recorded history and science just manage to recruit millions of believers and brainwash them. So when you think about Mormons, there's this conception of them as being law-abiding, hardworking, family-oriented people. And the polygamists are this little splinter that is not in line with the church doctrine. And then you go to the museum in the winter home of Brigham Young, who was the church's second prophet after the founder, Joseph Smith, died. And you can't take the tour by yourself. You have to be accompanied by a brother or sister that are waxing poetic about the merits of their prophet and their church. And you walk out of there with the book, of course. But then the history is not what they are telling you. Brigham Young was a power-hungry bigot. It got to the point where President Buchanan was so frustrated with the systematic obstruction of federal officials in Utah that he sent federal troops to install order. And the Mormons fought them in something that's called the Utah War. And Brigham Young believed in the inherent superiority of the white race. And he had 40-something children from 16 out of his 53 wives. Then let's not forget the Mountain Meadows Massacre that happened about half an hour's drive away from St. George, where a wagon train of people from Arkansas going out west was ambushed and slaughtered by the Mormons because they were not happy with people trespassing on their land. And they actually at first tried to attack them pretending to be Indians. And when the makeup ran on some of them and they realized that they're busted, they just slaughtered 120 people, and the only ones they left alive were a couple of kids under 7 years of age. So they may seem all warm and fuzzy now, but don't you forget it that it wasn't always this way. Another thing I did in St. George was visit the local art museum that had a wonderful exhibit of local artists' works dedicated to the Mexican Day of the Dead, Dia de Muerte. And in the museum, I met a guy who just retired from the army. He's not even 55 years old, in the prime of his life. Just finished his master's degree, and he is writing a script that he wants to sell to Hollywood. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, my God, I made a wrong career choice. I wish I went into the army and could retire while still being so young and full of energy and full of plans. And then after that, I went to the arts department of the local university. And they have a wonderful sculpture gallery, sculpture garden outside. And inside, they have a very interesting art gallery with a lot of works that were dedicated to Native Americans and woman power and quilts. And I love quilts and quilting, so for me, it was very interesting. And after the gallery, I went to see the new James Bond movie. So overall, it was a very, very enjoyable day. And while I was at the university, they had their orchestra or a music class, whatever, that needed to practice. And for some reason, the room that they were supposed to use was unavailable. So they practiced in the gallery. And in addition to the artwork, I got a free classical music concert thrown in. So it really does not get any better than that. St. George was great.